Lucy had just moved into her new apartment a week earlier. It wasn't much, a modest one-bedroom on the edge of town, where the city lights gave way to empty fields and dense woods. The rent was cheap and the place had charm with its tall windows and worn wooden floors. She didn't mind the creaks in the floorboards or the occasional groan of the old pipes. But the night that Shadow appeared changed everything. It started like any other night. Lucy sat curled up on the couch, her cat Max asleep beside her as the soft hum of the TV filled the room. It was nearly midnight when she decided to go to bed. After switching off the TV and locking the door, she made her way to her bedroom. That's when she saw it, the faint outline of a figure standing just outside her window. She froze, her hand still on the light switch. The figure didn't move, didn't make a sound. At first she thought it was a trick of the light. Maybe a shadow cast by a tree or something outside. But there were no trees that close to her window, nothing that could explain the eerie silhouette. She approached the window slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. The closer she got, the clearer it became. A woman standing just outside, staring into her room. Her features were hard to make out, but she was tall, with long dark hair that hung in tangled waves. The longer Lucy stared, the more her skin crawled with an unsettling realization. The woman wasn't moving at all. Lucy's hand trembled as she reached for the curtains, quickly drawing them shut. She stepped back, her mind racing. Was someone watching her? Who was this woman and why was she just standing there? A cold chill swept through her, and the apartment suddenly felt much darker than it had just moments ago. She barely slept that night, every creak and rustle outside making her flinch. When morning finally came, Lucy tried to brush it off. Maybe she had imagined the whole thing. After all, moving into a new place was stressful, and it wasn't uncommon for the mind to play tricks when you were exhausted. But that explanation seemed less convincing when the shadow appeared again the following night. And the night after that. The woman didn't move, didn't make any noise. She just stood there, always in the same spot, staring through the window. By the third night, Lucy had had enough. She called the police, explaining that she thought someone was stalking her, watching her every night. They came by, searched the property, but found no one. No footprints outside her window, no sign that anyone had been there. The officer who responded tried to reassure her, but Lucy could tell he didn't believe her. After that, the woman kept coming back and Lucy's life started to unravel. She began dreading the nighttime, knowing that as soon as the sun set, the figure would reappear. Her friends noticed the change in her. She became more withdrawn, distracted, constantly looking over her shoulder. When she finally confided in her best friend, Megan, the two of them came up with a plan. "I'll stay over tonight," Megan said confidently. "We'll see this thing together and we'll figure out what's going on. Maybe it's just someone messing with you." Lucy was hesitant. She didn't want to drag Megan into this nightmare, but she was also desperate for someone to believe her, to confirm she wasn't losing her mind. That night, the two friends sat in Lucy's living room, talking quietly and keeping their eyes on the window. As midnight approached, the tension in the room grew thick. Then, right on schedule, the figure appeared. "There?" Lucy whispered, pointing towards the window. Megan's eyes widened, but she didn't say anything. Together, they approached the window cautiously. Megan pressed her face to the glass, her breath fogging the pain. "It's just standing there," Megan muttered, her voice shaky. "What the hell?" Lucy felt a surge of relief that she wasn't imagining it, but that relief quickly turned to dread. If Megan could see it too, that meant this wasn't some trick of the light. This was real. "Should we call the police again?" Megan asked, but before Lucy could respond, the figure moved for the first time. Slowly, deliberately, the woman turned her head, her face partially visible through the darkened glass. Lucy's breath hitched in her throat. The woman's eyes were hollow, empty pits of darkness, and her mouth twisted into a thin, unsettling smile. Megan gasped and stumbled back, pulling Lucy away from the window. What is that?" Lucy couldn't answer. Her heart raced, her mind spinning with fear. This was no ordinary stalker. "We're leaving," Megan said firmly, grabbing her keys. "You can't stay here." They rushed out of the apartment, jumping into Megan's car and speeding off into the night. As they drove, Lucy's mind raced. What had they just seen? And why was this happening to her? The two of them decided to stay at Megan's place that night. Lucy couldn't bear to go back to the apartment, not after what had just happened. But even at Megan's, she found no comfort. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the woman's face, the empty eyes, the chilling smile. Days passed, and Lucy refused to return to the apartment. Megan helped her pack up some essentials, and Lucy stayed with her friend, too terrified to go back. But the figure didn't leave her alone. It started appearing in Megan's windows too, standing outside just watching. Why is this happening? Lucy cried one night, her voice filled with desperation. What does she want? Megan was just as shaken. I don't know, but we need to figure this out. Desperate for answers, the two friends started researching the history of Lucy's apartment and the area around it. That's when they stumbled across an article from 20 years earlier about a woman named Evelyn Burke who had lived in the building. She had been a recluse, rarely seen by her neighbors, and one day she simply vanished without a trace. The police had found no evidence of foul play, and the case went cold. Some rumors suggested she had gone mad, while others claimed she had been involved in something sinister. Lucy's blood ran cold. You don't think? Megan nodded grimly. It makes sense. The woman outside your window, she could be Evelyn. The discovery was disturbing, but it didn't explain why Evelyn, or whatever she had become, was haunting Lucy. Why now? And why was she appearing outside Megan's place too? Then one night the answer came. That it was a cold, rainy evening, and Lucy was alone in Megan's apartment. Megan had gone out for the night, and Lucy was trying to distract herself with a book when she heard a soft tapping at the window. Her heart dropped. She knew what it was. She turned slowly, her eyes landing on the familiar figure standing just outside. But this time something was different. The woman wasn't staring directly at her. Instead, her gaze was fixed on something inside the apartment. Lucy followed the line of her sight and froze. On the coffee table, sitting in plain view, was an old photograph Megan had found while they were researching Evelyn Burke. That it was a photo of Evelyn taken in the 1970s. And standing next to her, smiling brightly, was Megan's grandmother. Lucy's stomach churned. Pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. Megan had mentioned that her grandmother had grown up in this town, but she had never connected the dots. Could it be that Megan's family had some connection to Evelyn Burke? Had they wronged her in some way? Before Lucy could process it further, the door creaked open and Megan walked in. Her face paled when she saw the photograph, and then her gaze shifted to the window. The woman was still there, staring in with those hollow eyes. Megan backed away, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucy, I think I know what she wants. Lucy's eyes widened as Megan began to explain. Decades ago, Megan's grandmother and Evelyn Burke had been close friends, but a falling out over a man had driven them apart. Evelyn had become obsessed with him, and when he chose Megan's grandmother instead, Evelyn spiraled into madness. The rumors about her involvement in something sinister? It wasn't madness, it was revenge. And now, Evelyn's spirit had found a way to return. The final piece of the mystery slid into place, and Lucy realized with a sickening clarity that the woman in the window had never been after her. It had always been Megan. The next night, Megan left town for good, moving far away from the shadow of Evelyn Burke. Lucy moved back into her apartment, where the window remained dark. The figure never appeared again. But sometimes on quiet nights, Lucy would catch herself glancing at the window, half expecting to see that shadow once more.